All right, welcome to everybody. So tonight we're going to be in the book of Daniel, and we've already done our introduction to the book of Daniel, but tonight we're going to be in chapter 1, and we're going to just kind of hold to chapter 1 here. It's Daniel is a book that's just full of real treasures. It's about integrity under pressure. It's written by a godly man who served his almost his whole life in a pagan palace. That's who Daniel was. He served in a pagan land, in a pagan palace, but kept his integrity with his relationship with God. And that's why he is so incredible. And we're going to take a look here at the beginning of his situation in Babylon. But when we finish looking at that, we're going to take a look at a comparison, a really interesting comparison between Daniel and Jesus himself. So, we talked last time a little bit about the situation that took Daniel to Babylon and about his situation there. But once Daniel gets to Babylon, he's about the age of 15. That's a guess. He could anywhere from 10 to 15, but we're pretty sure right around 15. And he is of the nobility. He was among the young, up and coming young men in Jerusalem. They were taken back to Babylon and being groomed to serve in Nebuchadnezzar's court. Now, there's a program for assimilation into Babylon, and that includes relocating to Babylon itself, educating them in their educational system, which includes their pantheon of false gods as opposed to the one true God in Jerusalem, and their ways, the way that they do things, their legal proceedings, their hierarchies, and that kind of stuff. They had to learn the language. You know, when the people of Judah were taken off to Babylon, they spoke Hebrew. When they came back, they were Aramaic speakers or Chaldean. I think it was Chaldean speakers. And it's a different language. So you'll notice that the books written after the captivity have a different language in them. Those would be books like Nehemiah and Ezra and why can't I think of the name of it? Esther. These books were written after the Babylonian captivity. So to learn the biblical languages, you need to learn Greek so you could study the New Testament. You need to learn Hebrew so you could study the Old Testament, but you need to know Aramaic to study the later books of the Old Testament. So there was relocation, the education and their pagan wisdom, language indoctrination. They were given a privileged position in their new locations. They were taken to the palace or a training ground for the palace, and they were given the food and the close entitlements of those close to the king. And something really interesting happens is Daniel and his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and I always forget their Hebrew names, Azariah. They're given the foods of the Babylonians to eat, but it violates their covenant with God. They are still bound by their covenant that they took with God, and that is to follow the Levitical dietary regulations. So the Babylonian overseers are giving them this food to eat, and Daniel approaches them, and it says in Daniel chapter 1, then the king ordered Ashpenaz, the chief of the officials, to bring in some of the sons of Israel, including some of the royal family and of the nobles, youths in whom was no defect, who were good-looking, showing intelligence in every branch of wisdom, endowed with understanding and discerning knowledge, who had ability for serving in the king's court. And he ordered him to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. The king appointed for them a daily ration from the king's choice food and from the wine which he drank, and appointed that they should be educated 3 years, at the end of which they were to enter into the king's personal service. Among them were the sons of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Then the commander of the officials assigned new names to them, and to Daniel he assigned the name Belteshazzar, to Hananiah Shadrach, to Mishael Meshach, and to Azariah Abednego. But Daniel made up his mind he would not defile himself with the king's choice food or with the wine which he drank. So he sought permission from the commander of the officials that he might not defile himself. So Daniel is going to hold his ground. He's going to say, look, relocate me? Okay, you can do that. You can train me in your ways. You can do this. But I took a covenant to eat certain foods and to abstain from foods. I can't violate my covenant with God. So he challenges them. He says, let us eat our own ways and judge us. So they give them a 10-day period to eat their own foods and their own diet, and they compare them with the others who gave in and ate the king's dietary foods, and they were much better. It says they tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, this is chapter 1, verse 15, their appearance seemed better, and they were fatter than all the youths who had been eating the king's choice food. So the overseer continued. So God blessed them. They maintained their integrity, and they said, look, you can do this, this, and this, but here's where we stop. Here's where we draw the line. We cannot violate our covenant with God. And God honored that and provided a way for them to continue to abstain from certain foods. Now, what I want to talk about, first of all, is their names. And something really interesting comes up. We know that their names are changed. They are assimilating the Jewish youths into Babylonian culture and ways, and they changed their names. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are given Babylonian names. Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Something very interesting is taking place here. It's noteworthy that this is not where they draw the line. Okay, they accept their Babylonian names. That's not a violation of their covenant with God. You can call somebody whatever you want. If I decide you're going to be Bob and start calling you Bob, then just deal with it. That's what I'm going to call you. I had a talk with a gentleman in our church yesterday, and he's upset that somebody won't call him by the name he wants to be called by. But there's you have to just pray for grace in that situation and just deal with it. But and this is what these 4 young men do, is they say, okay, call me what you want, because that's not a violation of my oath with God. But it's interesting that all of their names contain the name of God in them. Daniel, El, is the name for God. Hananiah, Yah is the personal name from God that revealed to Moses in Exodus chapter 3. Mishael, so there's the name of God, El, and Azariah. So those 4 names all have the name of their God in it. Daniel means God is my judge. And let's see, Hananiah means God is gracious. Mishael means who is like God. And Azariah means God has helped. Okay, now they're given different names. Daniel is called Belteshazzar. Belteshazzar has the name of the Babylonian chief god Bel, or Marduk. He went by two names. Bel was the chief god of the Babylonian pantheon. So his name is changed to Belteshazzar, which means Bel protects the king. Bel was the god who claimed authority and was the arbiter of justice and destiny in the Babylonian kingdom. Hananiah's name was changed to Shadrach. Aku was the name of the Babylonian moon god, and the moon god was the god of fate and hidden knowledge. So Shadrach and Meshach are both incorporate the name Aku in their names at the end. Shadrach means the command of Aku, and Mishael means who is like Aku. So his Hebrew name is who is like God, and Meshach's Babylonian name is who is like Aku. So they were given these pagan names, and then Azariah was given the name Abednego, which means the servant of Nabu. So they went from all four of them having names that incorporated the name of the one true God to having Babylonian names that have names of false gods, of pagan idols. This is not where they drew the line. They were willing to go with that because that's not a violation of their covenant with God. It may be offensive to them, but they are living in a foreign land. Jeremiah tells the people, and Daniel was familiar with the writings of Jeremiah. He says, Jeremiah says in chapter 29, I believe. Let me look this up. I wasn't thinking about reading this tonight. Chapter 29. That's chapter 30. Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon, build houses and live in them, and plant gardens and eat their produce. Take wives and become the fathers of sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters and multiply there and do not decrease. Seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will have welfare. So Jeremiah tells the people on their way to Babylon, seek the welfare of Babylon. God used Babylon to judge us in our sinful, rebellious ways. So God is working with them. So seek their welfare. And this is what Daniel and his friends do, is they join in, and they're going to take part in this Babylonian empire, but they are going to be a testimony for God in doing so. And that's where their testimony comes from. It doesn't come from loud resistance and saying, you're a pagan king, we're not going to serve you. They take it on themselves to serve and be the best servants that they can. And in doing that and serving with integrity, God softens the hearts of their overseers. He honors their humility, and he flourishes them. They are a testimony to the Babylonians in the way that they succeed. So their identity was not in their names. God knows who they are. God knows their names. You know, Revelation chapter 2 tells us that God will give us all our new name when we're with him in heaven. The name that we carry around here is just a temporary title that we carry for a little bit. Now, I want to touch on this so that we can finish chapter 1 before we go. There's a very interesting connection between Daniel and his friends here in Daniel chapter 1, and then on into chapter 3. You'll see where we're going with that. And Jesus. And it looks like this. Jesus, when he was tested in the wilderness, there's a real parallel here with Daniel and his friends and Jesus in the wilderness. And it looks a lot like this, okay? Jesus was impelled into the wilderness. He was driven into the wilderness. That's how the gospel writers say it. Jesus wasn't just like, okay, I'm going to just wander off now. Oh, look, there's the wilderness. I think I'll go over there. The Spirit drove him into the wilderness, meaning he was pushed there, okay? God put him there for his testing. Daniel and his friends were forcibly removed and forcefully taken to the empire, the city of Babylon. Now, while they were there, the first test that they come across is about food, right? What's the first test that Jesus has in the wilderness? He was fasting, and Satan appeared to him and said, turn these stones into bread. And he refused. Daniel and his friends refused the king's food, and Jesus refused to lower himself and to turn the stones into bread in the wilderness. The next test had to do with throw yourself down from this tower. And the multitude of angels will save you. But Jesus didn't compromise. And this is the story of Daniel and his friends. They didn't compromise. They knew what was right. They knew that they should honor God. And they said, look, we don't care if this is going to turn out to kill us. Okay, we don't mind if this takes our lives, but we won't compromise in our promise to God. We have a covenant with him, and we're going to hold to that covenant with God. So so the second one has to do with compromise. The third one, and we have to go a couple chapters down the road for this, is when Nebuchadnezzar builds the golden idol and tells everybody in the kingdom to worship it, to bow down and worship it. This is the third test of Jesus in the desert. Bow down and worship me, and I will give you every kingdom that you see. You know, it's interesting, the connection between worship and kingdoms, worship and man's glory, because Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not bow down to the idol, and they refused to do that. And when we get there, we'll take a closer look at it. But those men, we don't know what came of the three others, but we know that Daniel lasted throughout 4 empires. Okay, it's a push to call Jerusalem or Judah an empire, but let's say kingdoms. He outlasted 4 kingdoms. He was there for the fall of Jerusalem. He was taken to Babylon. He was there for the fall of Babylon. The Medians came in. He was there for the fall of the Median Empire, and he was there when the Persians came in. And he died, well, it doesn't say he died, but he was there, it says at the end of chapter 1, and Daniel continued until the first year of Cyrus the king. So Daniel lasted through 4 kingdoms, and he never bowed down to the false idols. So there's a real story there, a real connection with Daniel and Jesus. The faithfulness of Daniel prefigures the faithfulness of Jesus. And one of the interesting things we see about Daniel is that we never see a flaw in Daniel. Now, that doesn't mean he was perfect. We don't know. We're not told everything about his story. But this is not the case with most of the characters in the Old Testament. We see their flaws. We see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their flaws. We see Moses and his flaws, and David and his, and Saul and the kings. We see the flaws of these men, but we never see this in Daniel. And he is a real testimony to faithfulness and integrity. So that's why we love Daniel so much. So that's it for tonight. Skip will be here tomorrow night. And then, man, I've got to think about when we're going to see you next. Wednesday is Christmas Eve. Then we got Christmas on Thursday. I'll probably be here Friday. I'm not going to take 5 days off in a row. I got to come back for Friday. So let's just plan on seeing you again on Friday. And we'll take a look at Daniel chapter 2. You'll love it. It's really a great chapter. So, all right, everybody, that's it for tonight. God bless each and every one of you. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. And we'll see you next time on Digging Deeper Daily. God bless.